Geordie Journo's back at Newcastle United's training ground for not an Eddie Howe press conference, a Jason Tindall press conference. Eddie Howe missed this morning through illness, an illness blow for Newcastle United ahead of Luton Town tomorrow. But no, it sounds like Eddie Howe will be okay to take the touchline tomorrow. I think he's taking training today, so
he's here at the training ground, so I think we just made him sick with all the press
I was going to say, I think it was,
and the transfer window probably made him sick too. So.
I think he was dreading waking up this morning facing 20 plus questions on a transfer window where nothing happened really. So he's wheeled out Jason Tindall, who was on good form, Dom. A lot of colour around him being the most known assistant manager in
the most high profile number 2 in the Premier League, and there was a lot of questions about that, to be honest. The sort of introduction of the touchline, the rules, just one coaching staff on the edge, on the touchline in Premier League games. He said that rule was probably introduced because of Newcastle and him and Eddie Howe, their dynamic, where they both like to be stood on the touchline themselves. But he said they've handled it very well. Jason Tindall hasn't been cautioned, Eddie Howe hasn't been cautioned for offences, as the wind is blustering around here in the barn. But yeah, Jason Tindall, again, he spoke about the high profile nature he has as an assistant, and he said it's just him being him. He doesn't do it on purpose, he doesn't really care what people think. It's just one of those things on social media, and he said he'd rather be loved than hated, or well known than people hated him. And to be fair, Newcastle fans, he's got his own song. I think the Newcastle fans do quite like him in terms of an assistant manager, which, as I say, is probably the most well-known one in the Premier League, or indeed maybe a bit further than that. So yeah,
world famous.
Yes, world famous Jason Tindall. And yeah, played down the desperate to be centre of attention sort of moniker he's been given, where he said it's superstition when he gets next to Eddie Howe, or when he's in the middle of team photos and things like that. He said that's more of a superstition thing than it is him being consciously like, oh, I've got to get myself involved here. But yeah, big game against Luton Town. Transfer window over. What's your reflections on the transfer window, Jordan? As you say, I mean, it's the busiest transfer window, as we've said, where absolutely nothing happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of noise.
It was a terrible transfer window, actually, wasn't it? Really, really bad.
Yeah, it really was. There's even the fact that you had all the noise about potential outgoings and still nothing happened. I mean, it was a quiet start, and then almost, like, I'd say, kicked into life very reluctantly. Well, very small. It didn't kick into life at all, did it?
It had a few days where you're like, oh, things might happen, but they weren't good things.
Yeah, it was all about player exits. As I mentioned before, the dynamic from Newcastle need to go out and sign a goalkeeper, a striker, and a midfielder too. Well, I hope we can keep Miguel Almiron this month. So yeah, it was a uneventful transfer window, but I think that just wasn't for Newcastle as well. I think you look across the Premier League, and yeah, I think I don't know if it's a quiet protest from clubs over PSR rules, but I think in my recent memory, this has got to be the quietest transfer window I've ever experienced. Not, as I say, not just from a Newcastle point of view. I think maybe from a Newcastle point of view, these transfer windows became the norm, and they might actually not signing players. Of course, we're in different times now, but in terms of the whole Premier League, there was little next to no business. So yeah, me personally, I'm quite pleased to see the transfer window closed. To be honest, I'm hoping for a busy summer now, but no, I'm just I'm looking forward to the rest of the season and actually just getting on with the football. Yeah, as I say, there was so much noise, but little happened, and yeah, I think importantly, it puts the PSR rules under the microscope a little bit, because as I say, I mentioned there about possibly a quiet protest. There was a lot of clubs obviously didn't spend money because of those PSR rules, and clubs will meet this month. I think it's in a couple of weeks' time to discuss those PSR rules potential changes, which I'll be surprised if we're standing here in 12 months' time and the PSR rules are still the same. That depends on how quickly they can get the changes through, but I suspect there'll be a lot of teams that want to see changes to that, because it's proved very, very restrictive, this transfer window. Newcastle ID would have strengthened, but here they are struggling to sign Calvin Phillips on loan for a £5 million loan fee. And obviously countless other players that they probably would have liked to have signed and brought forward from the summer to help bolster them in the second half of the season, but they simply couldn't do. So yeah, we move on. Hopefully it's a busy summer. But yeah, in the meantime, there's a lot to play for.
Yeah, and the transfer window, glad it's over in reality. It would have been nice to see Newcastle sign a player, but like for all clubs, it's
Well, they did, Alfie Harris.
Oh, let's not forget And let's not forget Javier Manquillo going out. It's a massive blow for Newcastle to lose him. But yeah, I think we'll have Keith Downey over our shoulder a moment ago. Thoughts with Sky Sports News, because I mean, no Premier League clubs really did much business. So it used to be the go-to place, didn't it, Sky Sports, throughout the transfer window. But yeah, it's
I didn't watch it last.
It's a tough window and a tough window to cover. It's flogging a dead horse at times, and we reported what we could, but in reality, very little happened. Other than, of course, Alfie Harrison and a couple of young lads going out as well.
Yeah.
But I think the big takeaway is certainly something I turned to you in the press conference, and when that is a big one. It was a big claim. We'll take it with a pinch of salt, of course, as you always do with injuries. Jason Tindall on Alexander Isak, who we're thinking could have been out, would almost definitely be out for the Luton game, has now put that bit of doubt in our mind that he could actually return. He said he's got a chance. He's improved day on day since being withdrawn at Aston Villa with a groin injury. It's an ongoing problem. He's missed quite a few games over pretty much since October, since that initial groin injury. He's missed quite a few games, so when he goes off with the same injury, you fear the worst. But Jason Tindall sort of provided some positivity in that regard, and also some positivity regarding the likes of Callum Wilson and Harvey Barnes in particular, but also Joe Willock, who we thought would still be a couple of weeks away, and Jamal Lascelles.
Yeah, I think he's looked at Eddie Howe's media notebook and took the injury news out straight away, because in that press conference,
every player's got a chance.
Yeah, Isak could be involved. Harvey Barnes, Joe Willock, pretty close. Jamal Lascelles, not too far away. So, given Newcastle have had an injury crisis over the last couple of months, it sounds like they could get 10 players back by the weekend, which I think is highly unlikely.
I think if we'd asked Jason Tindall if Elliot Anderson had a chance, he might have
would.
We'll see. Late fitness test. But
I think he was asked about Sandro Tonali, and I thought for 1 minute he's going to tell us that Sandro Tonali could be involved tomorrow as well. I mean, we're making fun of it, but I don't think all those players are going to return. I think the two that I wants to watch, once look out for, would be Callum Wilson and Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes was close to making the bench on Tuesday, apparently.
Back in training.
Callum Wilson was he's just for that little gap there. He's not there really. Callum Wilson, he was given an initial return date at the Aston Villa game, but then has been a little bit after that. I think Eddie Howe said in midweek that he hadn't trained yet, but I think he's probably got a chance of making the bench tomorrow. I don't know. I don't see Isak involved tomorrow. I think
I think that's
it's a risk.
Bit of a red herring, that Jason Tindall sprinkled in there for a bit of positivity. But I mean, if you're saying he's improved day on day, then at least it's not potentially as bad as first feared, where we were expecting he could be out for an extended period here. But we'll wait and see on that. Obviously, scan results and things like that. Hey, if he's on the bench tomorrow, that's massive, because it leaves Callum Wilson will be back, Alexander Isak back, and then you've still got Anthony Gordon who can play through the middle, and then Harvey Barnes back as well. So that Newcastle squad all of a sudden looks stronger, and then when you pair that in with Jacob Murphy returning to fitness and things like that, it's starting to look a bit brighter on the back of 2 wins in a row and a really, really positive result against Aston Villa on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it does feel that way. It does feel like the screw is starting to turn, if that's even a saying. I think I've just plucked out of my head there. But yeah, there's players that are close to returning, and as I've constantly said, I think Newcastle will be much better for it. So I don't think all those players will be back for Luton, but it does sort of suggest that in the coming weeks they will, hopefully by the end of February, have near a fully fit squad again. I think getting players back, and importantly as well, keeping players fit, which they haven't managed to do too often this season because of all the games, but obviously there's going to be a less amount of games in the second half of the season. I predict positive things for Newcastle, and I think they got such a positive result in midweek that it's really important that they back it up against Aston Villa tomorrow, and I think the team that finished the game at Aston Villa, including Lewis Miley. So I think the team that finished at the end of the first half when Miguel Almiron came on for Isak, I think that'll be the team that starts tomorrow. I like the dynamic of Almiron being down the left-hand side. I
actually thought the way the team that ended the game for Newcastle probably gave Eddie Howe a bit of food for thought. I think if Eddie Howe had made changes like that in games like against Man City, against Chelsea in the Cup, probably they don't concede those late goals, because going to a back five, bringing Tino Livramento on as a left back, Dan Burns slotting in, and then you have Gordon through the middle even, providing that bit of pace and bit of energy on the counter, and then Murphy, and obviously you haven't had the luxury of Jacob Murphy in those games, but the likes of Almiron, the wingers, making a difference. I think Newcastle looked a whole lot stronger and it nullified Villa, and I think that should be almost Newcastle's game plan moving forward. If it's tight going into the closing stages and maybe the opposition are looking to apply a bit of pressure, I thought it was great game management from Newcastle and Eddie Howe on Tuesday night, and it's just a shame. It's like learning from your mistakes. It's just a shame that probably wasn't introduced in the games like we saw against Man City earlier this year, and then Chelsea in the Cup when they conceded late on. So I think all in all things are looking a bit brighter for Newcastle, obviously buoyed by a great win on Tuesday night and heading into a favourable run of fixtures, although Jason Tindall wouldn't be drawn into admitting that. It's classic cliche, there's no easy games in the Premier League. I don't think he exactly said that, but he heavily implied it. But on the injury front, Craig Hope behind us there, he asked a question where basically you look at Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson, two great strikers, let's be honest, who score goals for Newcastle. The biggest problem is they don't start enough games. Both of them, since they signed for the club, have about a 50% start ratio.
Right.
They've started 50% of the games they could have possibly started since they arrived at the club. And ultimately, as good as two strikers as they are, two great goal scorers as well, you need players on the pitch, and I think that's been Newcastle's undoing in many ways this season. Just not enough reliability in key areas, striker probably being one of the most important areas on the pitch, to get players starting games and make an impact. Obviously, the 50% for Isak probably ties into the fact he missed the first half of last season pretty much, and if one of them's fit, if both of them's fit, it's very rare that both of them will start games, so you take that into account as well. There's that caveat. But I think Wilson and Isak fit and firing Newcastle have no real problems this season. It's just getting them both fit and both on the pitch, and at the moment both of them are doubts heading into the weekend, but hopefully back sooner rather than later. And it's a big game this weekend. We'll touch on that. Luton obviously resurgent, out of the relegation zone. Great win against Brighton in midweek, and obviously did a job on Newcastle at Kenilworth Road back in December, so not going to be an easy game. You probably would have said, looking at the fixture list when it was released, a banker Newcastle win, but even though Newcastle have shown vast improvements the past few games, it's going to be a difficult one, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game I think they have to win because they got such a good result in midweek against Aston Villa. That result in many ways almost becomes redundant if they go and get beat off Luton Town on Saturday, so they have to follow that up, and if they've got real aspirations of challenging that top 6, top 7, they've got to go on a run of wins, and I do think they'll do that the weekend. I think they've got enough. The injuries still aren't quite there. I mean, hopefully there will be players back, but even with if you give me the same squad as Newcastle had against Aston Villa midweek, I would back them to have enough to go and beat Luton, especially on home turf. Last time I think in many ways Luton played Newcastle off the park, really, didn't they? I think Newcastle, off memory, had about 2 chances in the game, if that.
Had a goal disallowed as well. I think Luton scored at a great time and then just held out and limited Newcastle very well. I think
cut the midfield open.
Yes, they did a few times. I thought Ross Barkley was really good in that game in particular.
Yeah, he was.
And forward line caused Newcastle problems. I think Luton thoroughly deserved that win they got at Kenilworth Road, but I think in the second half Newcastle tried to ask questions, but it was just a toothless attacking display. But Alexander Isak came on and made a bit of a difference, I thought, in that game. Hopefully he's involved tomorrow, though.
He'll not be. He might be.
Jordy
But
Journal's exclusive. Alexander Isak not involved.
I just don't say it. Don't say how
I
he's
think
risky.
Jason Tindall's playing the Eddie Howe game of keeping us all on our toes, not ruling anyone out, but not confirming anyone's back. But yeah, I think. Anything else to add?
No, I'm just cautious of time now because we've got a strict time now
We
being
are
out here for
past our
call,
limit.
and we're three
3
over.
minutes over, so
That's
that's why
strictness.
I'm sort of looking around just to
There's
make
no meat
sure
offside around yet.
we don't get kicked out. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Luton Town at St James's Park tomorrow. Me and Jordan will be there. Hopefully Liam Kennedy
Hopefully
will
it's
be there.
an illness
It's not
boost.
another, yes, double illness boost.
Double
for,
illness boost.
Newcastle in terms of Liam Kennedy back in the press box and Eddie Howe back in the dugout. Well, not that he ever missed being in the dugout, but missed the press conference this morning, as Liam Kennedy always does as well. So get well soon, Liam. Get well soon, Eddie. Two real important figures in Newcastle United. Certainly to us anyway.
Yeah,
Me and
of
Jordan.
course.
Anyway. So yeah, we'll see you there. And in the meantime, if you like what we're doing, please like, share, subscribe, watch the video, share it with your friends. Talk about the Geordie Journals. We really enjoy doing what we're doing, and any constructive criticism, anything you want us to do. The transfer window's over now. It's a very quiet transfer window, but anything you want us to do moving forward when things are a bit quieter, we'll of course have a look at and take any advice, any comments on board. We'll read all the comments, try to reply to what we can, the ones that make sense anyway. Sorry everyone, but yeah, in the meantime, please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you all at St James's Park tomorrow.